Hi, and welcome to the SoCal Yearbook Gal education series designed to inspire, support, encourage, and make your life easier. This week, we are talking about camera equipment. And one of the most important things that you put into your yearbook are pictures. So how are we going to take those pictures? How are we going to make them look really good? I'm so excited about this part because I love cameras and I love how they do different things for you depending on what you're using. So we'll start off at this far side over here with the cell phone. Smartphone pictures are so great. Back in the age of flip phones, I would say absolutely do not use flip phone pictures in your yearbook. But now these put out some really beautiful pictures. You can use some of these if you need it. And it's certainly a great backup in case one of these has a full CF card or if it has a dead battery. So keep one of these on you if you have it. Next, we have a point and shoot camera. These are great for younger students. These are great for just portability, being able to just stick it in your backpack. The cool thing about one of these, this is an Olympus, and it's shockproof and waterproof, which is kind of cool if you're going to be taking pictures at the beach, if you're going to take pictures at events where it's maybe rainy or you can potentially damage something like this. So this camera right here, some of these are waterproof too, but make sure that you don't take them out in the rain or to the water unless you're absolutely positive that it's going to survive. These cameras do not like the water, especially where we are, where we have the ocean really nearby. The salt water, even just the salt water in the air, really messes with this because the salt can sometimes get in there and they'll need to be cleaned. So we have right here a consumer model camera right here. And this one right here, if you get a camera, you can get one of these from Costco. Sometimes they'll come with kit lenses. This is a kit lens right here. It's an 18 to 55. It also came with this. This is a 70 to 300. The nice thing about this is that you can do close-up camera shots. You can do stuff far away. So maybe a football game, maybe an event where kids are working in a garden. So this is a great little camera. This is the T series. And it does have the manual setting. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. It has a manual setting. It has an auto setting and a whole bunch of great features. This is a great entry camera to start learning on and have, especially younger students, start learning on a DSLR. DSLR stands for a digital SLR. So then we have this camera right here. This is called a prosumer camera, and this is a 70D, but the D series. And then this lens is actually, this is not a kit lens. This is the 18 to 135. This is actually my favorite lens because it's the most versatile lens that I've been able to enjoy using. It can do a lot of close-up stuff and then longer distance as well. And then this is a professional series, and this is the 1D, the EOS 1D, and it also has a really nice lens. It's the 70 to 200 millimeter lens with image stabilization. Image stabilization, when you're looking at different lenses for your DSLRs, image stabilization is really important. So especially when you have a lens that's this big, it's really, really heavy. And sometimes it's harder if you can imagine like using binoculars and you're trying to look at an eagle and it's like here, but then, oh, I lost it. It's a lot like that with this. So it's just so long. It's, telescoping, trying to find what you're looking for. So the image stabilization keeps it from getting shaky, from the image getting shaky. A lot of these lenses have that as well, but keep that in mind. Now, this is a full frame camera, and one of the differences between the full frame camera and the cropped view is that you can use this lens on this camera, but you can't use this lens on this camera without getting a special adapter. So just keep that in mind when you're if you decide to go up to a full frame lens or full frame camera, that you keep in mind that these other lenses that you may have purchased before, like this one that I really like, you won't be able to use it on this camera. But a quick tip for camera usage is that these are really great cameras. All three of these are really great cameras, but rather than upgrading your camera body, if your camera is working well, it's probably better to upgrade the glass instead. And the glass meaning the lens that you're using on your camera. So if you're, rather than using a kit lens or a couple of kit lenses where you're having to change them out, stick them in your backpack, switch out the different lenses, maybe go for a lens that's a little bit more versatile. Or if you need to do something like, football games or where you're far away from the event, get something like this, a bigger zoom with image stabilization that you can then take and put onto a maybe less expensive camera body. One of the most important things that I recommend when talking to your yearbook students about cameras is that these are really expensive and they need to be cared for. Regardless if the students own the cameras or if the school owns the cameras, who cares who owns the cameras? You have to take care of these. Somebody paid for them and they paid a lot of money for them. So probably the most important thing is this neck strap. I had a student, actually a couple of students, unfortunately, and in the process of handing the camera to the other student, the camera fell. So the student who was handing it did not make sure that the student who was taking it actually had control of the camera, and this neck strap was not around anybody's neck or around anybody's wrist, and the camera fell and it broke. And so please make sure that the students know that this camera strap should be around their neck as soon as they get access to the camera. If they need to take a picture and it's way up here, they can take that camera strap, wrap it around their wrist a couple of times, and then use it this way. And then that way, if the camera falls, it's still attached to them in another way. Also, holding the camera. It's important to know how to hold a camera because not only do they get heavier, depending on how long the lens is, but also for the image stabilization. If you want your pictures to not be blurry, remember blurry is one of the few things that Photoshop can't fix. In order to make sure that your image does not end up blurry, you need to really stabilize that camera in your hands. So here's how we do that. Neck strap on first, grab the camera, left hand goes underneath the body. This is one of your points of balance. It goes underneath the body and on the lens. Right hand goes where the shutter, your finger goes on the shutter and it's holding the body right here. And then you can zoom in, zoom out. Your third point actually is your head against this viewfinder right here. It's nice and squishy, so it's not gonna hurt where your eye is. And you look through there and you have those 3 points. Also notice that my elbows are tucked in so that my body is also stabilizing the camera. And this is pretty stable right here if you don't have a tripod. If you're doing something with a long shutter speed and like I went to Seattle with my family and we wanted to take a really beautiful picture of the Space Needle, but it was very dark and the lights, from the city were bright and it was beautiful. We needed to use a tripod in order to stabilize it more than I can stabilize it. But even somebody walking by my tripod would make the picture blurry when your shutter is open for such an extended period of time. So when you're just taking standard pictures, hand underneath, your left hand underneath, your right hand around the body here with your finger on the trigger, and then elbows in and supported this way with the neck strap around your neck. All right, so the key point here is to make sure that your students understand the value here in your cameras. Upgrade the glass before you upgrade the body unless the body just isn't working quite right, and make sure that your students know how to hold the camera. If you're interested in learning more about what the different settings do in manual, there's a really, really great website. It's called canonoutsideofauto.ca, and it's a great resource for you, made by Canon, and it allows you and your students to go into the program, mess with the ISO, mess with the shutter speed, and all the different features within the manual setting. And then you can see what your picture will look like as far as aperture, depth of field, all of those things by just adjusting it and not even needing the camera. But remember, the more you use your cameras, the better you'll get at using them. So go out there, take those pictures, go to events, but please don't practice learning how to use manual at a really important event because it'll take some time. So go outside, practice, do some practice shots whenever you get a chance. All right, enjoy. Don't forget that you have a camera around your neck when you decide to sit down at your desk so that you don't do what I saw in my classroom. Sit down, hit the lens, hit the body, hit your lap. Please be careful because when you do that, there's a lot of impact to this And then the shutter speed. The shutter won't work anymore. The lens won't work anymore. You'll try and focus. It won't focus. So be careful. Know that this camera is around your neck when you decide to sit down at your table. This one happened to me personally. Totally my fault. I asked my beautiful daughter to go grab my camera bag. Didn't realize that I forgot to zip my camera bag. So when she picked it up, this happened. Open, camera, broken camera. Make sure every time, zip up that camera bag if there's a camera in it, or even if there are just lenses in there, zip up that camera bag. I hate to say it, I actually did this 2 times. The second time was on a trip. It was in the trunk of the car, grabbed the camera bag, camera plunked out of there. So your camera won't break every time, but it might, so plan on it. When you're ready to change out your lens, make sure that you don't crank this thing to unlock it. There's actually an unlock button right here. Push on that button, untwist the lens. Make sure that you put the cap back on the lens without getting anything in here. There's a little hole right there. Don't get anything in that hole. There's also a beautiful little mirror right there. Don't get anything in there, including just humidity in the air, any dust, any dirt, salt water needs to stay out of here. So if you're done with this lens, make sure that you have the lens cap on it. Take the stopper that goes on the back of the lens, replace it on here. Take this one and look at the little dots. There's a red dot right here, and that red dot lines up with a red dot right there. Sometimes there's a white one. The white square will line up. This one has a white square. It lines up right there. Line up the two. Do this relatively quickly. Make sure that it's all the way in before you start twisting it, and twist until it clicks. And then double check to make sure it's locked. And then you're all set and ready to use your next lens.